I want to throw this out to the three of you, and I've been talking about this, and some people have said, oh, you're nuts in bringing this up. Our system is so predicated on people spending. I mean, whenever we talk about consumer confidence, we're talking about Americans going out and, let's be honest, buying more TVs, buying more clothes, buying more cars, buying more DVDs. Yet for the last 3 years, we have preached to Americans, stop spending all this money, stop taking on more debt, you need to be more frugal. I'm sitting here saying, I think people have been listening to us. And so when we think people are going to run out and start buying stuff, it seems people are saying, wait a minute, I need to learn how to live within my means, and I need to confront the personal debt that I have and not ring up more debt. Is that also contributing to sort of the slow growth? The consumer has changed.
Well, I think it's true that the consumer has changed, but there have been some studies. NBER came out with one recently that said that if we look back at what happened with the stimulus, that a fair amount of it actually got spent. Certainly in the first year, when we had the stimulus combined with the sort of car rebates and that kind of thing, that we saw more spending than we might have expected at that point. It hasn't continued at the same pace. In part, as you noted, we've been telling people to be a little more careful about their finances, and I think that people who were caught short or saw neighbors who were caught short said, well, wait a minute, I probably need a little more in the bank should I lose my job.
But, you know, we've borrowed $4.5 trillion over the last 3 years. I mean, this is the biggest Keynesian experiment in the history of America, and yet we still have this kind of anemic job growth. Now, look, I actually think the economy is going to pick up in the second half. I think we're going to have, you know, let's keep our fingers crossed, but I think we're going to get back to hopefully 3 to 3.5% growth. But we've got to generate about 200 to 50,000 jobs a month for the next 3 or 4 years just to get back to 7.5% employment. We need to generate faster growth. The problem isn't the consumer. I think it's the problem is businesses aren't investing. They feel like this is a hostile climate. They think it's a kind of war against business right now.
But Robert, that whole point, when we say businesses aren't investing, but the same businesses will say, if I don't have more consumers who are spending more, exactly right. I mean, they say, how can I invest if they're not spending?
That's exactly right. Businesses are not investing, and they're not hiring because they don't think the demand will be there for the goods and services which additional investment and additional workers would produce. But what we're really seeing here is, I don't think the American people listening to the government say save. I just don't think the American people listen to the government.
It's just the government, but or anyone. Shows, and when you're hearing people, as Margaret said, they're seeing neighbors. They're saying, "Wait a minute, maybe I don't have to buy another TV."
What we have here is a very classical negative wealth effect. When wealth goes up, people feel better about themselves. They feel richer, and they spend more. That's what happened in the 1980s. That's what happened in the 1990s. The same thing operates in the opposite direction. The only widely held asset in this economy is value of people's homes. 40% of the value of all residential real estate is held by the bottom 80% of the country. Only 7% of the value of all financial assets are held by the bottom 80% of the country. So the stock market doesn't have much effect on this, but housing prices have an enormous effect.
But everything we've done on the housing market hasn't worked, and this is Republican and Democrat plans. We had the new home buyer tax credit. We had the federal government through the Federal Reserve has bought up about $500 billion of these bad mortgages, and it just doesn't seem to have helped. I mean, I just think the whole approach has been wrong, and I think that's what this kind of whole campaign is going to be about. Do Americans think that this is working fast enough and well enough to stick with the program?
I tell you what, I still think that, look, part of the problem is when you get an election every 2 years, you do not have the political will to get the votes necessary to do the right thing, because Republicans and Democrats will run away from any problem until it reaches a maximum crisis mode.
That's why Social Security and Medicare are going broke.
Gotcha. Well, and you know what? 68% of Americans say I don't want my taxes raised. 68% of Americans say deal with the deficit, and the same numbers say don't touch my entitlements. So it seems like the American people don't also want to be part of this solution as well.